Hey there, John from FatSacksBlog.com. Today let's go over some income reports. I'm going to double them up. I've been backlogged, and so I finally got February and March 2020 published on the blog, and I'll cover them both in this presentation. Before I jump into the numbers, I'll just say that this presentation is brought to you by Ezoic. I use Ezoic. They are a really cool high-tech platform for bloggers. They split test ads all over the place, resulting in higher revenue. It's remarkable how much higher it is than other ad networks, and especially AdSense by itself. They also have a really cool revenue analytics where you can get all kinds of data about how much you're making on individual URLs and other metrics such as by country and so forth. So if you're looking for a high-tech platform for higher revenue, check out Ezoic. And before I jump into the numbers, I want to talk about some recent developments. I usually, if anything is, making impact in my content business, I like to discuss them in the income reports. Really only one to discuss, and that's more in March and February, and that is growth in Pinterest traffic, which is really nice because it's nice to have another at least sizable traffic source. So in February, I noticed a little bit of an uptick in Pinterest. I had really not been proactive on Pinterest at all for quite some time. Traffic was steady at about 2,500 to 4,000 per day, without really doing anything. It's just visitors pinning to their boards and getting traffic and some old pins and so forth. But the uptick got me interested, so I decided to fire up my stale Tailwind account and start throwing out some pins and trying different designs and so on and so forth. So the result was basically kind of chugging along at about 2,500 to 4,000. And mid-March, I really put the pedal to the metal and increased the number of pins I was doing and trying out some new designs. I fell on some really cool design concepts that started working really well for me, and traffic started growing fairly quickly. So I went from about, let's call it an average of about 3,200 to 3,500 per day. It varies in the week. Sunday's usually the highest traffic day, and then kind of somewhere middle toward the end of the week is the lowest. Kind of goes in that cycle. Peaked out recently at, according to Google Analytics, just under 10,000 visitors for the day, and Pinterest reports just above, so whatever. Anyways, it was more than a doubling in 1 month of really hammering hard on Pinterest. So that's considerable growth, and it's still growing, so we'll see where it goes. But I wanted to bring this to your attention. I think it's been a good development. If your niche is something that actually works in Pinterest and your audience is there, maybe it's time to try some things on Pinterest and see if you can develop another traffic source. Other than that, no other developments, so let's dive into the numbers. Doing these 2 months at a time actually makes sense. I may do this again because I can kind of compare them directly, and I imagine people don't want to necessarily listen to this every single month. So here we are. Let's see, February total revenue topped out at $47,970. Now, as you all know, ad rates are down. February ad rates were quite good per 1,000 visitors. Nothing really happened. In March, they started going down. April's been a bloodbath. We're not out of April yet, so those numbers will be coming out in a few weeks. But I can tell you right now, they're not great. March, as you can see, it dropped. Revenue dropped about $2,500. So February was $47,970. March was $45,548. Not a huge difference. Not terrible. I can say this though: traffic toward the end of February dropped, I believe, and then in March it started climbing. And I can tell you in April, traffic's been very, very good. So while ad rates are going way down, traffic is going up nicely. So not quite a wash. Probably going to be down in April again, but it definitely helps. So I'd say for all intents and purposes, we're about even here. Nothing earth-shattering. I'd say it's pretty similar across the sites. You can see sites 3 and 4 dropped down quite a bit, actually. So those got hit. The rest pretty much stable. My biggest revenue sources right now in terms of display ads would be AdThrive, which was tad over 33,000 for March, and roughly about the same for February. Ezoic is a big revenue driver for me for most of my niche sites. The smaller sites for March came in just shy of $2,000. There is an expense attached to Ezoic though, because I'm in the premium ad program, and that costs about $575. Actually, with the drop in revenue in April, that's dropped down to a lower tier already, so that'll come out in April. Amazon, well, do we even want to get into Amazon at this point after their recent announcement of slashing commissions basically from 7-8% for a lot of the categories down to a deplorable 1-3%? So this may be the last time we see a half-decent Amazon report. Not that that minds anything to write home about. Amazon makes up a very small portion. For March, Amazon revenue was $2,100, which for me is actually quite good. I'm quite happy about it. I don't do a whole lot on Amazon. For me, it's kind of incremental. And lastly, another significant revenue driver is a software product that I promote with a niche site. This is Niche Site 2. I get a quarterly check in the amount of just over, it's always around $15,000. It's not really growing. It's not really going down. Although I am curious whether it's going to go down next quarter, just because I suspect this is in the B2B realm, and I suspect a lot of referrals that I've sent over the years will have dropped this expense from their business because they're brick and mortar, and I'm sure they're not going to be paying for the software. So that may be ugly. I'm bracing for that. But I get a quarterly check, and then usually what I do is I just allocate a third of it to each month, because really that's how it's generated. So that's a wrap on the revenue. Moving into the expenses, basically I have a handful of major expenses. One right now is Ezoic premium ads at about $575. Well, I'll jump to the totals. February total expenses were $6,857. March $7,799. The reason they went up in March is I hired someone to run my Pinterest. So I hired someone on Upwork. She's very, very good. I hired her after I kind of developed my own little system, and then I trained her, and actually she knows her way around really well. This is not the first time she's doing any social media, so she's brought a lot to the party, so to speak, and has actually improved things dramatically. So my VA costs went up somewhat in March due to that hire. Kinsta hosting's $1,200 a month, and then I just have a handful of software I use, the usual suspects: Ahrefs, Tailwind, OptinMonster, a bunch of others. So total expenses, February just shy of $7,000, March just shy of $8,000. So net income for February was $41,113. Net income for March was $37,749, down a fair chunk in March. Moving on, the one aspect of, I guess some would qualify it as an expense, I qualify it as an investment, would be content. I call it content investment. Obviously, that's going to impact the bottom line, what I put in my pocket, so I'm definitely going to set it out here. But I like to break it out from the expenses, because this is really the big revenue driver, right? Without the content, the stuff's not going to grow. I'm not going to generate revenue. So this is a very, very important aspect to any content business, really. Now, I do write a little bit here and there, and I've been rolling up my sleeves lately and improving some old content, even writing some new content. I've attempted to slash my overall content investment each month, just because ad revenue is down some, so I need to compensate for that somehow. So in February, I spent with Writer Access $10,000. In March, I dropped that down quite a bit to $5,500. Then I have some in-house writers, podcast content. So in February, total content investment was $14,250. It's fairly high. It's a significant amount to invest in content for a given month. I've actually really been investing quite a bit. I think February and then January and December, the last few months there. Dropped that down quite a bit in March, just because ad revenue was going down, so I dropped that down to $9,630. So net income after content in February was $26,863. Net income for March after content was $28,118. So that's, we're basically even Steven here, not a big difference. April, I have really no idea. It's kind of interesting. I still am investing in content. In fact, I've found some really, really good new sub niches for my biggest niche site. So I've been really pouring it on there. Haven't really been paying attention when I'm spending, so I'm a little bit nervous there. I do know ad revenue is going to be down somewhat, so I think April's not going to be great in terms of net income in my pocket afterwards. That's a wrap on the income report for February and March 2020. Overall, I'm very pleased. I just have to say, I'm given the current economic environment, I'm very fortunate. So these are very good. I also like the fact I do have a lot of control. I mean, after all, I did still spend quite a bit on content. Worst case scenario, I could just dive that down to zero if it's necessary for a few months, even with some of my other expenses, such as a lot of that software. The VA expense, that would be one of the last things I'd want to drop. I have a very good team. I like all of them. I don't like to ever let people go. And so that would be one of the last things that I would do. So I'm fortunate I can keep them on board for now. Thank you very, very much for listening.